Chosen one. This message didn't reach you by chance. It found you by divine alignment, because heaven never misses a target. There are no accidents in the spirit, only sacred assignments unfolding right on time. You were led here because something ancient is being restored through you. A legacy is calling. A shift is happening. Heaven sees you, rebuilding what others walked away from. You're not just passing through this moment, you're standing at the gateway of destiny. A door is open, and you're the key that unlocks it. You've felt it your whole life. The weight that others ignored. The questions no one wanted to ask. The tension that lingered in silence. Even as a child, your spirit could sense. Something was off, something was missing. And deep down, you knew. You were sent to change it. You didn't just inherit DNA. You inherited divine purpose. You were sent through generations of survival, silence, and sorrow to become the voice, the light, and the restoration. This message is not just a word. It's a divine confirmation. You are the legacy your bloodline has been praying for. And yes, it's been heavy. You've wondered why your path felt more painful than others. You've questioned why you were the one burdened with what felt invisible, emotional, or unfair. It's because what broke in the bloodline didn't end with them. It waited for you. But here's what heaven knows. You are strong enough. You are wise enough. And you are anointed enough to break what others denied and build what others never imagined. You are not just the curse breaker. You are the blueprint builder. Before we step deeper into this message, pause. Take a sacred breath. And if your spirit is already stirred, if you feel that this is more than a video, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. Because this isn't entertainment. It's a spiritual transmission, a mirror for your soul, a prophetic awakening that speaks to the parts of you that the world tried to silence. Drop 77 in the comments if you know you've been chosen to complete what your ancestors couldn't. That number is not random. It's a divine code, a signpost in the spirit that says, I'm aligned, I'm ready, and I will finish the work. Only those truly called will remain until the end of this message. And if you do, expect revelation. Not just for you, but for generations. Expect to uncover the truth of why your path was forged in fire, and how every tear you've cried has watered the seeds of a new future. You see, wisdom doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And in that quiet space, healing happens. So come back to this message when you feel lost or weary, because each time you return, you'll discover another layer of who you truly are. Now let's walk into the sacred assignment together. Let's explore the divine chapters of your calling. 7 revelations that will awaken what's been buried deep inside. This is more than a journey. This is restoration. This is legacy. This is why you were born. Number 1. The invisible burden. There's a weight you've carried for as long as you can remember. Something unspoken. Something you never asked for, but somehow always knew was yours. It wasn't handed to you like a gift. No one sat you down to explain it. Yet it found its way to you. In glances that avoided the truth. In silences that echoed louder than words. In the way the atmosphere shifted whenever you walked into certain rooms. This burden didn't begin with you, but it was always waiting for someone like you. Long before you had the language to describe it, your soul could feel it. The heaviness, the grief, the hidden sorrow that clung to generations like a shadow. You walked into rooms and sensed stories that were never told. You noticed pain behind smiles. You heard the sharpness in laughter that didn't quite feel free. And somewhere deep within, you just knew. You were here to break something open, to confront what everyone else learned to avoid, And no, you weren't being dramatic. You were being divinely aware. You were never just born into a family. You were sent into a bloodline. There's a difference. Being born is biology. Being sent is strategy. You were placed with precision, on purpose, for purpose. You were sent into a lineage of fighters, survivors, the overlooked, the ones who carried silent pain, who pushed through life without ever naming the things that broke them. People who gave love, but never learned healing. People who passed down traditions without ever asking whether they were rooted in truth or in trauma. And you felt it, in your emotions, your body, even your energy. The exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. The anxiety that didn't come from your own life but lived in your bones. The strange guilt you felt when trying to walk away from toxic patterns, as if choosing peace meant betraying your family. You weren't imagining any of it. You were carrying echoes, emotional residue left behind by those who never got the chance to fully feel, to cry, to process, to heal. And yet, you kept showing up. This invisible weight didn't find you because you were the weakest. It found you because heaven knew you were the first strong enough to transform it, strong enough to stop it. You are not here to maintain the cycle. You were chosen to end it. Heaven saw in you what others couldn't see in themselves. Resilience woven into your DNA. A spiritual awareness that cuts through illusion. Compassion deep enough to hold pain, and courage sharp enough to confront it. And when you looked around and saw the same wounds playing out in different people, different generations, different forms, you didn't numb yourself. You didn't run. You felt it. And in doing so, you began the healing. You're not just the one who fixes problems. You are the one who feels the roots of those problems. And that's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous to the cycles that want to keep repeating. You are the mirror that reflects the dysfunction. You're the voice that dares to speak what no one else will say. You're the presence that says, "It ends with me." That kind of clarity isn't always welcomed. Sometimes it's resisted, misunderstood, even resented. Because when you choose to heal, you disturb every spirit that thrives in secrecy. You rattle the cages of patterns that have kept families bound. You become a disruption to everything that relied on silence. And still, you show up with compassion in your heart and truth in your hands. You question not because you hate tradition, but because you're loyal to truth. You challenge the way things have always been, not to be rebellious, but to be real. Because love without truth becomes control, and survival without healing becomes bondage. That's why the burden feels so heavy. It isn't just yours. You carry the suppressed tears of your mother, who never learned how to say, "I'm not okay." You carry the unspoken grief of your father, who worked himself numb trying to provide, but never learned how to feel. You carry the trauma of ancestors who endured abuse, racism, silence, and shame, but couldn't find the language or the space to release it. You are the space. You are the language. You are the permission they never had. And while this weight can sometimes feel unfair, unbearable even, it is also sacred. Because in you, there is the strength to turn wounds into wisdom, pain into prophecy, and burden into blessing. You've been chosen to be the alchemist of your bloodline, not just to survive, but to redefine survival. Not just to break the chain, but to build something new in its place. Not just to heal, but to leave a blueprint for what healing looks like, for your children, your siblings, your community, and everyone still watching from the sidelines. You are unlocking doors that have been closed for generations, doors to freedom, to peace, to divine clarity. You are rerouting the path forward, not just for yourself, but for everyone who will come after you, and maybe even for some who came before you. You didn't start this fire of transformation, but you are the one who will let it burn clean through every lie, every limitation, every shadow that tried to hide in your bloodline. So don't apologize for being too much. Don't shrink because your presence makes people uncomfortable. Don't doubt yourself because others don't understand you. You are not crazy. You are called. You are not broken. You are built differently. You are not weak. You are wired for restoration. Let the world misunderstand you. Let the old systems reject you. Let the burden be heavy, for now, because heaven is watching, and heaven sees every tear, every boundary, every brave decision to heal instead of hide. You are not just carrying weight. You are carrying revolution. And because of you, the story is changing. Because of you, the bloodline will breathe again. Number 2, you were born different for a reason. You've always known it. Even if you couldn't explain it, even when you tried to deny it, something inside you whispered, "You're not like the others." And that whisper never stopped. From a young age, you noticed things other people ignored. You sensed moods before words were spoken. You felt tension in the air while everyone else just smiled and pretended. You asked questions that made the room uncomfortable. Not because you wanted to cause trouble, but because something deep in your soul couldn't accept what didn't sit right. While others laughed off dysfunction, you sat with the ache. While others numbed themselves to survive, you felt it all and tried to make sense of it. Not because you were weak, but because your spirit was already being trained to discern truth. You were born with an inner compass that refused to point toward compromise. The world around you tried to shape you, fit you in, quiet you down. Maybe your family didn't understand your emotions. Maybe they called you too sensitive, too deep, too intense. Maybe teachers said you asked too many questions. Maybe friends said you were just too much. But what they called too much, God called exactly right. That sensitivity? It wasn't a flaw. It was sacred. It was the radar system of your soul. You were wired to feel more, to sense more, because your purpose required it. You weren't made to float on the surface. You were designed to swim in the deep. You weren't sent here to blend in. You were sent to build a new frequency, one that could only be birthed through someone who saw beyond what others accepted. Even as a child, your spirit resisted what didn't feel true. When people said, "This is just the way things are," something inside you said, "But why?" When people blindly followed pain, you questioned the pattern. You didn't rebel for rebellion's sake. You rebelled against the lie, against silence, against the masks that generations wore like armor. You were never here to play it safe. You were here to awaken what's been asleep, because it wasn't just dysfunction you were reacting to. It was dishonesty, misalignment, generational denial that tried to pass itself off as tradition. And every time you said, "This doesn't feel right," you weren't being dramatic. You were being prophetic. You were tuned into something deeper, even if you didn't have the words yet. Your life has always been proof that something new is possible, that something sacred can come from something shattered. You are the living contradiction to the lie that this is all we'll ever be. And that's exactly why you didn't fit in. You were never supposed to. You were sent to lead others out of confusion, out of emotional bondage, out of cycles dressed up as culture. You're the one who sees the difference between love and control, between discipline and damage, between survival and sabotage. Your intuition was never wrong. That feeling in your gut, that instinct to pull away from certain people, that nudge to walk a different path, all of it was divinely designed. You weren't being paranoid. You were being protected. And yes, it's cost you. You've been misunderstood, talked about, rejected. There were times you questioned yourself because the people around you couldn't see what you saw. You shrank yourself to be accepted. You dimmed your light, hoping others would feel comfortable. You second-guessed your insight, thinking maybe you were just imagining things. But let this be your confirmation. You weren't crazy. You were called. The attacks weren't proof that you were broken. They were proof that your light threatened everything that was hiding in the shadows. Because here's what most don't understand. The black sheep of the family is often the golden thread that holds the future together. You may have been pushed out, but you were set apart. There's something rare in your DNA. A divine spark that generations before you tried to protect, even if they didn't know how. You are the dream they couldn't articulate, the healing they didn't have access to, the boldness they were too afraid to live out. Their silence was survival. Your voice is restoration. Their suppression was self-defense. Your authenticity is revolution. And so, the battle began early. You were targeted in spirit before you could even speak. Not by people, but by patterns. By systems that feared your awakening. Because when someone like you starts to remember who they are, cycles start to collapse. Strongholds start to tremble. The enemy loses control. That's why you've always felt like you were in a fight, even when nothing looked wrong on the outside. Because deep down, you weren't fighting for acceptance. You were fighting to remember who you are. And now that memory is coming back. Not just as a thought, but as a knowing. You are not average. You are not here to mimic or perform or people-please your way into approval. You were born to shift the narrative, to reroute generations, to confront the illusions and lead others to truth. That ache you feel when things are out of alignment, that's purpose. That fire in your belly when you hear something real, that's your assignment recognizing itself. That loneliness, it's the mark of being chosen. Because chosen ones are rarely recognized in the places they come from. Just like Jesus wasn't honored in his hometown. Just like Joseph was sold out by his own brothers. Just like Moses was raised in Pharaoh's palace, but his heart beat for the suffering of his people. Being chosen doesn't mean being celebrated. It means being consecrated. You're not here for popularity. You're here for legacy. And when you feel like you're walking alone, remember this. Heaven walks with you. Your steps are watched. Your tears are counted. Your obedience is honored. And your pain will never be wasted. You are the intercessor, the revealer, the repairer of the breach. Your life is not a random collection of struggles and gifts. It's a spiritual design. A roadmap that leads your bloodline out of captivity and into clarity. So if you've ever wondered why you feel different, why you question everything, why you just can't go along to get along, it's because your family prayed for a shift, and God sent you. Number 3, confronting the wounds that run deep. Being chosen to restore your bloodline is not a title. It's a calling, a sacred one. And with that calling comes a path that is not easy, not glamorous, and certainly not for the faint of heart. You weren't chosen to look the part. You were chosen to carry the truth. And truth always demands confrontation. If you're going to heal what's been broken, you have to be willing to see what others pretended wasn't there. You have to be willing to feel what others numbed. You have to be brave enough to call out what others made peace with, just to survive. You didn't ask for this. You didn't raise your hand for this battle. But God saw your spirit long before you ever understood your assignment. And He knew you were the one who could walk into the dark corners of your lineage and say, "No more. This ends here." But before you could become the healer, you had to confront the wounds yourself. Wounds you didn't create. Wounds you didn't deserve. Wounds passed down like heirlooms, generational hand-me-downs of pain, betrayal, silence, addiction, and shame. And here's the hard part. You felt them before you even had the words for them. You felt the heaviness in relationships that never felt safe. You felt the anxiety in rooms where smiles didn't match the energy. You felt the sadness no one talked about, the unspoken rules, the guilt for asking why. You carried burdens that didn't belong to you, yet stuck to you like spiritual residue. Because in spiritual realms, pain doesn't need words to travel. It transfers through patterns, emotions, expectations, and presence. And for a long time, you didn't understand why. Why you felt so drained. Why certain relationships always left you feeling small. Why you were angry, even when no one had done anything wrong that day. Why you felt so alone in a crowded room. Why you wanted to run and didn't know where to go. The truth? You were carrying wounds that were never healed by those before you. You were absorbing patterns of suppression. You were standing in emotional environments built on survival, not wholeness. The sadness that wasn't spoken, you inherited it. The grief that went unprocessed, you carried it. The fear that stayed silent in your ancestors' throats, it echoed through you. But here's the difference. You chose to face it. You chose to feel what they couldn't. You chose to confront what they avoided. You chose to grieve out loud what they suffered in silence. That is not weakness. That is sacred strength. This is not surface-level healing. This is soul-level surgery. This is not self-help. This is spiritual warfare. It's raw. It's lonely. It's exhausting. But it is holy. And when God placed this assignment on your shoulders, He knew it would cost you something. You wouldn't just lose illusions. You might lose connection. You might lose comfort. You might even lose the version of yourself that learned to please, shrink, and smile to keep the peace. Because this kind of healing demands sacrifice. You may lose closeness with people who are still married to their pain. You may be labeled difficult by those who prefer dysfunction. You may be judged for setting boundaries, misunderstood for choosing silence, rejected for choosing truth. But listen closely. You are not losing people. You are gaining clarity. And clarity is what generational healing requires. Because the most dangerous spirits aren't always loud. They hide behind religion. They hide behind fake smiles. They hide behind phrases like, "That's just how we do things," or "We don't talk about that here." They show up as codependency dressed as loyalty, shame masquerading as humility, control pretending to be love. But you were sent to expose those spirits. To bring light where shadows thought they'd last forever, to speak truth that shatters emotional paralysis, to interrupt cycles that have stolen too many futures. And yes, you've been through more than most. But it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Your trials weren't random. They were designed to sharpen your discernment, to expand your compassion, to train your voice, to deepen your knowing, to soften your heart, while strengthening your spirit. You had to walk through the fire so you could recognize the flames in others and pull them out. You had to feel the patterns so you could rewrite them. You had to cry the tears they never let fall. You had to let the pain pierce you, not to break you, but to wake you. You are not healing for yourself alone. You are healing for your mother, who never had space to rest. You are healing for your father, who never had permission to feel. You are healing for your ancestors, who only knew survival. And you are healing for the children yet to be born, who deserve a clean inheritance. Because of you, the lineage gets a fresh start. Because of you, the echo of trauma is being silenced. Because of you, the future is no longer chained to the past. You are the healing balm. You are the sacred answer to generations of unanswered prayers. You are the walking, breathing, embodied yes that heaven whispered into the darkness long ago. Send them now. They're ready. Let the world call it sensitivity. Let them misunderstand your process. Let them mock your boundaries. You're not here for their comfort. You're here for their freedom, even if they don't know it yet. So don't run from this deep. Don't numb yourself just to make it easier. Don't dilute your healing to be digestible. You were sent to go deep because the wounds run deep, but the healing you carry runs deeper. You were sent to feel it all, so you could free it all. And that's exactly what you're doing now. Number 4, spiritual gifts awaken through battle. From the very beginning, the battle started early. Long before you had words for it, you were already under pressure. Before you could form thoughts about identity, the resistance had already formed against you. That wasn't a coincidence. That was confirmation. The enemy recognized your potential before you did. And the moment you entered this world, something in the unseen realm was stirred. You didn't arrive quietly. You arrived with authority. Even if the room didn't notice, the spirit realm did. That's why it seemed like life hit you harder, why relationships felt more confusing, why rejection felt like a familiar friend before love ever got a proper introduction. But here's the truth. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Heaven wasn't trying to crush you. It was activating you. Every tear sharpened your discernment. Every betrayal trained your sensitivity. Every season of isolation unlocked a deeper awareness of God's voice. Your spiritual gifts weren't learned in a classroom. They were carved out in the wilderness, in pain, in silence, in confusion, in lonely rooms where no one saw the war inside your mind, but you fought anyway. You thought you were just overthinking, but what you called overthinking was actually discernment, untrained but powerful. You sensed things before they happened. You picked up on energy that others missed. You knew when something was off, even if everyone else was smiling. That wasn't anxiety. That was your spiritual radar. Your gift wasn't broken. It was being refined. The emotional depth that people called too much, that was your anointing taking root. That was the foundation for your prophetic insight. You thought your solitude was punishment, but it was spiritual mentorship. Heaven was removing the noise so you could hear God clearly. Because here's what no one told you. Gifts are often revealed through grief. Power often rises through pressure. Clarity is often born in the chaos we're trying to escape. Your dreams weren't random. Your instincts weren't accidents. Your stillness wasn't emptiness. It was strategy. Heaven's way of drawing you closer to your true identity. While others sought applause, you were being taught alignment. While others ran to be seen, you were learning to sit in silence and see clearly. You weren't left behind. You were being led deeper, because what you carry cannot be built on shallow ground. Your spiritual gifts, your prophetic knowing, your healing touch, your deep empathy, your ability to read a room without a word. None of that came from a textbook. It came from surviving storms. It came from standing alone and choosing truth. It came from praying through panic, from holding on to God when your world fell apart. You were never just intuitive. You were spiritually tuned. You were never just emotional. You were energetically precise. You were never just insightful. You were prophetically aligned. And the more pain you processed, the more your power emerged. You started to realize you didn't just feel deeply, you perceived. You didn't just cry, you released atmospheres. You didn't just notice patterns, you decoded spiritual systems. You didn't just speak, you shattered lies with your voice. But with every new level of spiritual awareness comes new responsibility. That's why people started falling away. That's why certain environments suddenly became unbearable. That's why your taste for small talk and shallow spaces disappeared. Not because you became arrogant, but because your spirit outgrew the places your trauma used to keep you trapped in. You are not the same, and that's the point. The elevation you're experiencing now isn't about status. It's about assignment. You're not rising to be admired. You're rising to intercede. Because you don't just pray. You pierce the veil. You don't just speak. You shift the atmosphere. You don't just walk in a room. You carry breakthrough with you. That's why the warfare has been so intense. That's why the enemy has tried to make you doubt your own mind. Because when you finally believe in who you are, nothing can stop what flows through you. So hear this loud and clear. Your dreams are messages. Your stillness is strategy. Your tears are intercession. Your presence is power. You're not average. You're anointed. And the oil that flows from your life is costly, pressed from years of pain, obedience, surrender, and refinement. You carry keys that unlock others. You carry revelation that confronts principalities. You carry love that heals trauma. You carry presence that disturbs darkness. You've been gifted, not by accident, but by intention. Not just for yourself, but for your lineage. For the wounded ones who still can't see clearly. For the children who need safety. For the elders who never got to heal. Your awakening is their deliverance. Your clarity is their release. Your strength is their answered prayer. So no, don't downplay your gifts. Don't shrink just because others don't understand you. Don't second-guess what you've seen in the spirit. You are not making it up. You are remembering who you've always been. Heaven didn't forget who you are. Heaven's just been waiting for you to remember. You were anointed for this, prepared for this, born for this. You are not just a survivor. You are a spiritual warrior, armed with divine authority and entrusted with generational keys. You walk in rooms and atmospheres shift. You speak truth and chains break. You pray and portals open. You fast and strongholds tremble. You are more than gifted. You are activated. Now step boldly. Own your anointing. Stop playing small when heaven has called you to stand tall. Because this isn't the season to question who you are. This is the season to rise as who you've always been. Number 5. You are their answered prayer. You may not realize this yet, but you're not just here to heal your own heart. You are here because someone, long before you, prayed you into existence. You are not just a person. You are a prophecy, the living manifestation of hope that once whispered in the dark. Long before you were born, someone was crying out for change. Someone stood in their kitchen, exhausted by life, and begged God to break the cycle. Someone sat alone in a room they never called safe, asking heaven if anyone would ever bring peace to this family. Someone, decades ago, held a dream in their heart they never got to see. And God's answer was you. You are the response to the prayers they didn't even have the words to form. When your ancestors prayed for the curse to be broken, when they begged for the abuse to stop, when they hoped their children wouldn't suffer the same sorrow, God wrote your name in the wind. You are the divine reply, not because you're perfect, but because you were willing to say yes. Yes to growth. Yes to healing. Yes to breaking what was always considered normal. Yes to changing what was passed off as just how things are. That ache in your chest? That longing to be free? That pull to do life differently, even if no one else understands? That's not just your desire, it's the echo of generational cries sounding through your soul. You carry more than DNA. You carry assignment. You carry dreams your ancestors never got to chase. You carry light they never saw. You carry healing they only hoped someone, anyone, would one day bring. They may not have had the language for spiritual gifts, but they passed down the hunger for them. They may not have had the time to rest, but their bones remembered what peace felt like. They may not have known how to speak love, but they longed for someone to show it. And then you came, born into the storm, dropped into dysfunction, surrounded by pressure. But inside you, something different, something they didn't have the freedom to express, but prayed might rise one day through someone bold enough to break the silence. That someone is you. You're not here to follow tradition for the sake of keeping peace. You're here to establish a new covenant, one built on truth, one rooted in love, one aligned with heaven. You are not cursed. You are called. And the evidence is in the fight you've had to endure to simply be yourself. Because purpose is rarely birthed in comfort. It is born through spiritual contractions. It groans through pressure. It roars through rejection. And it emerges through the bold ones who choose to stand where others fell. You are that bold one, the one who confronts instead of conforms, the one who feels instead of fleeing, the one who says, "It ends with me," and means it. They called you sensitive, but that sensitivity is how you hear heaven. They called you dramatic, but that drama was actually discernment in disguise. They said you were overreacting, but what they didn't know is that your spirit was responding to generations of buried pain finally reaching the surface. You were never too much. You were the exact measure needed to break the spell. You are the intercessor your family never knew they needed. The curse breaker. The blueprint rewriter. The one who doesn't just survive the dysfunction, but creates new patterns of divine living. Because of your obedience, generational trauma is being traded for generational truth. Shame is being replaced with honor. Repression is being exchanged for restoration. And it's not just what you feel that proves your calling, it's what you refuse to become. You refuse to pass down what broke you. You refuse to teach silence when expression brings freedom. You refuse to repeat patterns just because that's how it's always been. You refuse to pretend that love must hurt. You refuse to live numb. And that refusal, that holy resistance, it's breaking more chains than you'll ever fully see. There were fathers who never hugged their children because no one ever hugged them. There were mothers who carried the weight of the world on their backs and never knew what it meant to rest. There were grandparents who lost themselves in hard labor and heavy secrets, praying without words for someone to come. That someone is you. You are the healing they never got. You are the freedom they only dreamed of. You are the clarity they longed to feel, but never could. You are the softness they suppressed to survive. You are the leader they hoped might rise one day. And no, it hasn't been easy. But that's because you're building something that has never existed in your bloodline before. You are constructing a future with spiritual architecture. A legacy where love is spoken, where emotions are safe, where joy is not just tolerated, but expected. This is what it means to be chosen, to stand in the intersection of past and future, with one hand holding sacred wisdom from behind, and the other hand planting seeds for the generations to come. You are not just answering a call, you are the answer. Every time you choose healing, every time you break the silence, every time you cry a tear your ancestors weren't allowed to shed, every time you say no more, heaven records it. Angels mark it. Legacy shifts. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a platform or a pulpit. You don't need applause. All you need is to keep saying yes. Yes to wholeness. Yes to truth. Yes to becoming what they only dreamed could exist. You are their answered prayer, their spiritual inheritance, their redemption in human form. You are not just part of the bloodline. You are its divine revival. Number 6. You are the new blueprint. You've come so far already. You've faced the pain, survived the silence, felt the weight of what others buried. You've sat in the fire and didn't let it consume you. You've cried tears for generations that couldn't. You've answered the call, and now it's time to understand what comes next. Because chosen one, you are not just the one who breaks the chain. You are the one who builds what comes after. You are the new blueprint. This is what your entire journey has been leading up to. Not just the confrontation of the past, but the construction of a new legacy. A legacy rooted not in survival, but in alignment. Not in trauma, but in truth. Not in pretending, but in authenticity. You are the bridge between what was and what will be. The architect of a spiritual inheritance that future generations will thank you for. Because the moment you chose healing over hiding, you changed the map. The moment you chose truth over tradition, you rewrote the script. And now, you're not just called to feel the pain, you're called to design the path forward. This means your every choice matters. How you speak, how you love, how you lead, how you rest, how you show up when no one is watching. It all becomes part of the new pattern being written through your life. You are not just avoiding what's broken, you are modeling what's whole. That means creating a life where peace isn't earned, it's normal. Where communication is clear, not confused. Where love is not performance, but presence. Where emotions are not shamed, they're sacred. You are teaching your children, your siblings, your friends, even strangers, what it looks like to live healed. Every time you choose vulnerability over performance, every time you pause and reflect instead of reacting from an old wound, every time you hold space for someone else to be honest and don't shrink away from their truth, you are becoming the very thing your bloodline didn't know how to dream of. And no, you won't do it perfectly. But perfection was never the goal. Presence is. And your presence, your willingness, your daily decisions rooted in truth, that is the foundation of a restored legacy. You are not the bandage. You are the blueprint, not the one who just fixes the surface, but the one who lays the foundation deeper. And you're doing it all with God. You're co-building something eternal, something spiritual, something divine. Because when God rewrites a bloodline, He doesn't do it through comfort. He does it through courage, and that's what you are. Courage in human form. A walking, breathing reflection of God's mercy showing up in the middle of dysfunction and saying, no more. You're creating homes where children don't have to guess if they're safe, where partners don't have to perform to feel loved, where conversations flow instead of curses, where boundaries aren't threats, they're honored, where emotional honesty isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You are building what your ancestors couldn't build. You are living what your parents may not understand. You are becoming what no one modeled for you. And still, you rise. Still, you choose love. Still, you build something holy from the rubble. Yes, it's tiring. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's unseen. But heaven sees. And heaven celebrates every small act of obedience you sow in secret. Because the legacy you're building isn't loud, it's lasting. And that's the difference between those who repeat history and those who rewrite it. You are not here to live small. You are here to live strategically, intentionally, spiritually aligned. Every healed reaction is a revolution. Every forgiven offense is a spiritual earthquake. Every time you love with purity, you are reversing centuries of conditional connection. Every time you rest without guilt, you are restoring what burnout tried to steal. You are the change that cannot be explained in one generation. You are creating ripple effects in time that will stretch into eternity, and the enemy knows it. That's why the warfare came early. That's why your heart was under attack before you even had language for your gift. That's why you were rejected by the very ones you were sent to love. But now you see clearly. You were never meant to fit the old mold. You were sent to form the new structure. You are the sacred template, the divine alternative, the new possibility. And as you walk in this identity, you'll notice something shift. Your peace will no longer be negotiable. Your presence will become transformational. Your voice will carry authority, not because it's loud, but because it's aligned. And those around you, whether they understand it or not, will begin to experience healing simply by being near your frequency. Because you've done the work. You've walked through fire. You've stayed faithful in hidden seasons. And now, you're stepping into what only the healed can carry. Blueprint energy. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to prove anything. You are the evidence. Your life is the testimony. Your presence is the prophecy. Your growth is the generational reward. So walk forward in confidence. Design boldly. Speak truth gently. Lead with love ferociously. You are not the echo of dysfunction. You are the original sound of healing. You are not continuing what they started. You are beginning what they never had the chance to. And because of you, what once felt like a curse will now be remembered as the starting point of redemption. You are the new blueprint. You are the future's foundation. You are what divine restoration looks like in motion. Chosen one. If you've made it this far, it's not by accident. This word wasn't just information. It was activation, a divine reminder of who you are, why you're here, and the power you carry within your soul. You weren't sent into your family to conform. You were sent to transform, to confront what was hidden, to heal what was hurting, to restore what was broken. And now you've been reminded. You are the one who feels deeply, not by mistake, but by design. The one who speaks truth when silence has become too heavy. The one who rises with clarity in chaos. The one who doesn't just survive trauma, but rewrites the timeline it came from. You are the curse breaker, the intercessor, the blueprint, the prayer in motion, the seed of legacy planted in holy soil. Yes, the road is long. Yes, the wait is real. But so is the reward, because this is not just about you. It's about every soul connected to your obedience. It's about every child who will grow up in the freedom you fought for. It's about every future generation that will never have to battle what you chose to face head-on. You didn't come this far just to heal. You came to build, to construct something sacred with your life, to leave a blueprint where others once only saw brokenness, to turn pain into peace and shame into wisdom. So breathe in that truth. Let it settle in your bones. You were never too much. You were never too late. You were never alone. You are not broken. You are becoming. This is the divine exchange. For every tear you cried, joy is coming. For every silent battle, honor is rising. For every scar you carry, there is glory waiting. And as you walk forward, walk boldly. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you know now. You were chosen for this. Let your life be a testimony. Let your healing be a map. Let your voice be a lighthouse for those still trapped in silence. You are the miracle they've been waiting for. You are the beginning of something holy. So if this word stirred your soul, if you felt your spirit awaken, drop 777 in the comments as a prophetic agreement that this is your season to rise, restore, and rebuild. And if you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because this space is not just content, it's a sanctuary for the chosen. Or let this message be the one you return to when you forget who you are. And every time you do, may you remember, you were not just born, you were sent. And where you go, freedom follows. Now rise, because legacy is waiting.